Hello and welcome back to my world of stuff. Today I'm talking about a TV series, a recent TV series. That's not something that I usually do on this channel, but I feel I have to talk about this one because it's so damn good. Let's talk about the resurrection of Dexter. Hello, welcome back. My name is Paul Mark. Yes, I'm doing something I tend not to do on this channel. I'm going to talk about a recent TV show, in fact a very modern TV show, although it does have, I suppose, a little bit of retro feeling because it's been around quite a while. But it is a show which I absolutely love, and I just wanted to talk about it because there's been a new season which has been absolutely brilliant and is, spoiler for the end of the year, my favourite TV show of the year so far. I can't see anything coming along that I'm going to find as so relentlessly, embarrassingly entertaining as the new series of Dexter Resurrection, which has been airing since July on Paramount. And even though it's a new show, and people generally don't tend to like me talking about new shows too much on this channel because they like me talking about the old stuff, and I love talking about the old stuff, but there is some good new stuff too. And I really want to talk about Dexter because it's a show which I've loved since it first appeared back in October 2006. If you don't know, broadly speaking, the idea of Dexter is that in the original series, which ran for 8 seasons on Showtime in the States, and I think it was showed originally on Fox, the old Fox channel in the UK, it's about a blood spatter analyst called Dexter Morgan, who works for Miami Metro in Florida. He goes to crime scenes and he makes detailed examinations of where the blood has been splattered and comes up with theories about how the murder took place, and then it's up to the detectives themselves to work out who actually did the murder. But Dexter has a terrible secret. He is a serial killer himself, but he doesn't just kill randomly. He kills people who escaped from justice. Naturally, being involved with the police, he sees those moments where people who he knows or is pretty damn sure have committed terrible crimes, have escaped on legal technicalities, or they just escaped justice. He hunts them down. He exacts his own form of justice on these people by killing them and then dispatching the bodies. In the original Dexter series, he would cut up the bodies, put the bits into bin bags and chuck them in the bay, which has repercussions as the series goes on. So you might think, wow, this bloke's horrible. And yeah, I suppose he is. But in a way, he isn't. He is a classic anti-hero because he does good, but does it terribly. And he does it because he's got what he calls his dark passion. He's got a flip side, a personality, an urge to kill. But that urge to kill is directed and channeled into killing the people who've escaped justice, the people who kill people horribly. They are serial killers. They've done terrible things to people. So it's a character that, in theory, should be very hard to warm to. And yet we do. As I mentioned, he does have what he calls this dark passion, this urge to kill. And this, we discover through various flashbacks, is because of his slightly troubled childhood. He is haunted by images of his late father, played by James Remar, who appears to him as not exactly a ghost, but almost like a conscience, who sort of reminds him of his code, which he has taught Dexter, that you don't kill innocent people, but you do kill the bad guys. This isn't a series that I would normally watch, because as you probably know, I'm not a big fan of police things and murder investigations and stuff like that, but it stars as Dexter Michael C. Hall. He is an actor I hugely admired in a series called 6 Feet Under, which was one of the, I think, accepted now as not only one of the great American television series, but one of the great American television series of this new age of quality American television, which had been ushered in with things like The Sopranos and Breaking Bad and so on. Quality television, serialized, that developed stories and developed characters, the sorts of things that I often say we have too much of in television. But I think these new shows that came around at the turn of the century really opened the television out, made it more cinematic, made it bigger. It could tell bigger and better stories because it had more time to focus on the characters and focus on their personalities and their motivations and so on. Michael C. Hall in 6 Feet Under played a character called David Fisher. This is about a funeral home and a family that run this funeral home and their various foibles and their quirks and idiosyncrasies and their character flaws and some of the things that they went through across, I think it was 5 seasons. It was written and created by Alan Ball, who previously created the film American Beauty starring Kevin Spacey. And it was just a fantastic series with superb performances, not least from Michael C. Hall. So when this new series was announced, starring Michael C. Hall, I was always going to watch it, and I was drawn in by it almost immediately. I was drawn in by the vivacity of its production. It was set in Miami, but I think a lot of it was filmed in Los Angeles, but it really had that sort of vibe of Florida with the music and the soundtrack and the fashions and the sunshine and the colour and excitement of that part of the world. But it's all driven by Michael C. Hall's incredible performance. He plays Dexter as this slightly distant, emotionally repressed man. He has trouble with relationships. He has trouble forging friendships because of what he does. He can't let people get too close to him. And throughout the series, when they do, it puts him and them in terrible danger very often. The show actually ran for 8 seasons. As I said, it started in 2006 and finished in September 2013. The first 4 seasons were showrun by Clyde Phillips, who had helped get the show going. And he left the show after the 4th season, and some other showrunners came on board. And I think that Dexter fans generally feel that the first 4 seasons were the show at its very best, and that it lost something when Clyde Phillips moved away. Now, from my memory, I love Dexter from beginning to end. I know that some of the later series weren't quite as good. What made the show work so well is that there was almost a villain, a main villain, an arc throughout the season of a villain he was trying to catch, the ice truck killer in the first season. And very memorably, the Trinity Killer, played astonishingly by John Lithgow in season 4. The last 4 seasons were still hugely entertaining, and I can't remember really finding much fault in them, but they didn't quite have the dynamism and thorough plotting and character development we'd had in the first 4 seasons. And when the show finished in September 2013, a lot of people were very dissatisfied with the finale. Certain things had happened to supporting characters, and Dexter was on the point of being discovered for who he was, the character known as the Bay Harbor Butcher, because lots of the bodies that he'd dismembered and thrown in the bay had been discovered, and he was in severe risk of being exposed as the person who'd done all this. And throughout the run of the series, it was thrilling because it was one of those shows that teased you by Dexter came close to the point of being discovered, and then something would happen and somebody would step in and something would give him a last minute reprieve. And it was breathtakingly exciting at its best. But I think a lot of fans felt that the end of the season was very disappointing because Dexter sailed away from Miami, and we had this rather silly close-up of him somewhere with a very fake beard stuck on, that he was living somewhere in the middle of nowhere and put his past behind him. Most people were dissatisfied with that, including Michael C. Hall and Clyde Phillips, the original showrunner. And in November 2021, Dexter returned in Dexter New Blood. Clyde Phillips was back on board, and this was a really good 10-part season. A lot of people are fairly critical of it, which I think is a shame because it was a really tight, well put together story that maintained all the things that made Dexter so good in the first place. I think that Dexter New Blood had all the elements of the original Dexter. Clyde Phillips was back show running. Michael C. Hall was as good as ever. And one of the best things about the series is the narration. Dexter, in this sort of slightly deadpan voice, it is in a monologue, him talking about what's happening and what he's doing and the things that he's thinking about as he wanders through his very strange existence. He's now living in a remote, snowy community called Iron Lake, where he's trying to keep his head down. But of course, his past comes back to haunt him. And eventually he meets up with his son, Harrison. Now, Harrison was born during the run of the original series. He is now a teenager and he wants to find his father. He's played by a very intense young actor called Jack Olcott. And Dexter and Harrison try to forge a relationship. It's very difficult because Dexter's got his past and Harrison shares some of Dexter's urges. And eventually, as the series wore on, it reached a conclusion in the 10th episode where it appeared that Harrison killed Dexter. He shot him, let's face it, at point blank range. And we see Dexter sprawled in the snow with blood spreading out from beneath his body. I thought it was a satisfying and satisfactory conclusion. It finished Dexter off. It finished the story of Dexter. A lot of fans weren't happy. They still didn't think it was the ending that the character deserved. But I thought it was a very effective blood red full stop on the character and the show. But it was not to be. A prequel series, Dexter Original Sin, aired in December of last year. This attempted to fill in some of the blanks in Dexter's character as a young man. This starred Patrick Gibson, who gave an astonishing performance as a young Dexter. You really felt that it was a young Michael C. Hall. He had the mannerisms, the vocal inflections, Michael C. Hall, as an adult, is doing the narration for reasons that I'll explain shortly. And it takes us back to his early days at Miami Metro. And it does fill in some interesting gaps that explain a bit more about Dexter's childhood. And it fills in things that we don't know about what made him the man that we met in the original series. It was a huge success, and in fact it was renewed for a second season. But as it was airing, it was announced that Dexter himself will be back in a series called Dexter Resurrection. And that's what I want to talk about predominantly here. This is a series, and what I like about Dexter is they don't mess about, they get on with it. This started filming in January this year. It's on screen in July. And I was reading fairly recently about the production process. It's all so well written and so well prepared and planned. They just get in and they film it. They do a couple of takes, then they move on, because there's a lot going on in this series. There's a lot of different locations, different characters, different movement. And to think that they got this 10-episode show on its feet in 7 months at a time when a lot of the prestige TV shows take a couple of years to do another season, I think it's a testament not only to how good this series is, but also to the fact that TV shows don't need to take this long, really. As long as you do your preparation, you've got your scripts in place and your actors ready to go and know what they're doing, you can make quality television and get it done very quickly. This series then tells us that Dexter didn't die out in the snow, but he was seriously injured and rushed to hospital, and he spent 10 weeks in a coma. He eventually came out of that coma, only to discover that his former friend from Miami Metro, Angel Batista, played by the brilliant David Zayas, is on his tail. He knows who Dexter is. Dexter escapes from prison, makes his way to New York, and manages to catch up with his son, who's now working as a bellboy in the Empire Hotel in New York. The very first episode sets up where we're going with all this. It reveals more about Harrison's own urges, in that he ends up killing a customer at the hotel who was about to rape a drugged up young girl he picked up at the bar. He does just as Dexter did. He dismembers the body and disposes of it, but unfortunately the body is found and the trail seems to lead back to the Empire Hotel. Eventually Dexter meets up with Harrison and they start to rebuild their relationship. However, there's more trouble for Dexter when he discovers that there's a killer called the Dark Passenger who is wandering the streets of New York, killing taxi drivers by effectively garroting them and decapitating them. Of course, Dexter is the Dark Passenger and he's intrigued by this. This brings him into contact with a character called Leon Prater, played by Peter Dinklage. He's a billionaire venture capitalist and he runs a secret society of serial killers. He's fascinated by serial killers. At his remote, exclusive and frankly quite palatial home, he has a secret cellar which is full of artifacts from serial killers throughout history. Dexter is both appalled and fascinated, particularly when he discovers that this secret society is made up of a number of other serial killers who delight in telling each other the terrible things they've done in the past. Dexter, of course, has no choice but to kill these people or to effect their destruction one by one. And I think it's a testament to this show, the cast that it can pull on board for its runs. Here, as I said, we have Peter Dinklage, a highly in-demand, highly acclaimed actor, playing this plausible villain, plausible collector of monstrous antiquities. His right-hand person and head of security is Charlie, played by Uma Thurman. Other serial killers are played by the likes of David Dastmalchian, Eric Stonestreet from Modern Family, and Kristen Ritter. This is a show with a great cast and great cast of guest characters. We also have returning appearances from characters from the original series of Dexter making cameos, as well as David Zayas, who's back as Angel Batista throughout the series. What a great character. I've always liked the character of Angel with his hat and his quirky, jaunty manner. But things take a turn for the dark for Angel here. He knows who Dexter really is now, and he understands how he has worked in the past. He knows he's the Bay Harbor Butcher. And even though he's handed in his badge, he's no longer a police officer. He's followed him. He's determined to track him down and bring him in. But we also have cameos from characters from the original series. Desmond Harrington, who played Joey Quinn, lieutenant of the Miami Metro Homicide Department. We also have C.S. Lee as Vince Masuka, the slightly creepy forensic officer who worked alongside Dexter. We also have return appearances from other characters like John Dokes, played by Eric King. He also worked with Dexter, but he always had suspicions about Dexter. He thought that Dexter was up to something, but ultimately he came under suspicion. He sort of accepted that he was in fact the Bay Harbor Butcher. And some of Dexter's old adversaries make cameo appearances as well as visions that Dexter sees. So it is a show that brings its past together and references it, and it is a show, it obviously helps if you've seen Dexter all the way through, because you pick up on all these references and all these characters and all these beats and all these developments in the character and in his life. This is a fantastic series which I've really enjoyed every episode of this. It's been a Friday night treat for me. The show drops on Friday morning, but I wait till Friday evening to watch it when it's dark, and I turn the lights off and I immerse myself in this fantastic world. The thing about Dexter, if you stop and think about it, particularly I think in this season, it is absurd. The coincidences and the things that happen that wouldn't happen, it's all incredibly heightened, but that makes it work so well. Early in the series, Dexter arrives in New York with nothing but a stolen car. He's homeless, he's got no job, he's got no money, but he just happens to meet up with a taxi driver called Blessing Kamara, played by Natari Guma Mahabo Mwine. He's a rideshare driver, and Dexter befriends him. He offers him a home in his basement of his house, and he helps Dexter get a job as a rideshare driver, which all happens in the blink of an eye. It's all convenient, but it moves the story along, and it is illogical. And if you stop and think about it, you think, well, this wouldn't happen that quickly. It's just incredibly lucky that he met this guy who had an apartment that he rents him, and he gets involved with the family, and there are problems and issues and emotional things with the family. And it just all seems incredibly unlikely, but that's what makes it work, because it is so well put together, so well written, beautifully made. As I said, considering it was made across a period of a few months, it looks fantastically cinematic with loads of drone shots, lots of spectacle with helicopters and boats and action sequences and fights. It's pulse pounding television. It really is fantastic stuff. But I think you have to watch it and set aside your your finer critical faculties and your sense of logic, and just go with the flow. Dexter is the luckiest man on earth, because there are so many times he could have and should have been caught. He could have and should have been killed. But he gets out of it by his wit and his guile and this incredible survival instinct which he has. The final episode, which aired last week, had a cliffhanger which was devastating in terms of one regular character and devastating in terms of Dexter, because Dexter is trapped in a sealed room with no way of escape. But he gets out of there, and he gets out of the situation, and he resolves the situation, and it sets up another series. It is just a fantastic piece of television, and it is a worthy return to form for Dexter. For anybody who felt that the show ran out of steam originally and that New Blood was a disappointment, this, in terms of its storytelling and its characters, you've got such a terrific cast who are really enjoying the material they got to work with, because it's gothic and it's gory and it's extreme and it's lurid and it's mad. And I think as an actor, it's just a gift to play roles like this in a series like this. Michael C. Hall, who is, he's looking older now. He's looking like a man, sort of late middle age, maybe a man in his 50s. But he inhabits this character so well. And I think it's quite clear that as career terms, he's planted his flag in this character now. And this is where he wants to go. And I believe that there are at least 2 more seasons planned for this, with a possibility of 5 seasons in total. I'm happy with that, because this is such a treat. It's so exciting. Edge of the seat stuff, twists and turns. It's just a beautiful piece of television. So if you've never seen Dexter, just go and chase the previous seasons. I think it's on Netflix. But I know people did fall out of love during the run of the show and felt it had jumped the shark and it wasn't what it was. But I really think that even if you didn't like New Blood, this is Dexter back on form. And I don't think you need to know all that much about the previous series. I think you get more out of these shows if you know the history and you've seen them all. But it does recaps. There's a recap at the beginning of the first episode of this one, which pretty much brings you up to speed. But this is just propulsive, adrenalized, high-octane stuff, which I think is just a wonderful piece of television. You really need to see it. So that's my current TV recommendation. The show finished last Friday. I'm now bereft on a Friday night, because it was the highlight of the day, the highlight of the week, really, is looking forward to a new episode of Dexter. So I really hope we get the official confirmation of season 2. It sets up where we're going in season 2, because there are references throughout the season to a character called the New York Ripper. And I won't spoil exactly what happens at the end, but it certainly, it sets Dexter off on a new quest, I think, for more episodes. So the future's looking bright for Dexter, not so bright for Original Sin. The series, although it was recommissioned, has now been cancelled again, because apparently Showtime want to focus on Dexter moving forward, which I can understand. There is a fan campaign to try and get the series reinstated. I don't know. I do feel that you're risking sort of telling the story right up to the point where we met Dexter in season 1. And I think sometimes you need a bit of ambiguity, you need a bit of mystery, you don't need every gap in the narrative to be filled. So much as I enjoyed the first season, I thought it was a great cast and it was really well done and the central villain was superb. I'm quite happy to set that aside and say, well, that's done and dusted. I'm also slightly wary of talk of a Dexter expanded universe. There's talk of spin-off series, prequel series about characters like the Trinity Killer and various other murderers that we've met along the way in supporting Dexter characters. I'm not sure. If they cancel the original sin because they want to focus on Dexter, why make series which don't feature Dexter at all? So I'm not entirely sure. I know that everybody wants a universe these days, but let's just focus on Dexter and keep it at the top of its game, because if the same creators are working on spin-offs, someone's eye is going to come off the ball and Dexter's going to suffer again, and nobody wants that. So, yeah, I'm not sure about the idea of a Dexter universe. If it happens, I'm on board and I'll watch it, but I'm Team Dexter, and I always will be. Dexter Resurrection. It's the TV show of the year. It's as simple as that. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this little rant about Dexter Resurrection. As I said, I don't do a lot of stuff on modern TV and film because I know that's not what people come here for. But I just felt that I've enjoyed Dexter so much this year. I just wanted to talk about it and direct you towards it if you've not seen it yet. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Loads more stuff to come. And I'm working on, as I mentioned in my video last week, I think, I'm trying to plan my videos, what they're going to be, where they're going to launch. So I'm trying to get a video out every other day during the week and possibly one on the weekend. But we'll see how it goes. So I will see you soon. Like, subscribe, click that, and keep taking the stuff.